It's been a number of years since we kickstarted my KBA production studio as my Asia base, since I find myself here quite often. It's the perfect time for me to follow up on what essentially is a 1 year later review on my SmartWings blinds. I've installed 3 of them, the third one just recently. One thing I wanted to do for my windows is just having a day-to-day convenience and just some smartness in there to make a quality of life improvement. I didn't want to have to go to every single window, having to draw them up and draw them down. When you're looking at the dimensions, you can really fine tune it for the size of your window installations, but also some things that I didn't have in mind at the time, whether you want it as an outside mount, an inside mount within your window cutout. Even if you wanted to keep things a bit more distilled and simplistic, which for me I went for. I didn't have any kind of smart home setup and I just wanted it to be motorized. Some level of convenience where I can control all of them at once or individually. Then just the standard remote style and being motorized was enough. 3 shades I ended up picking was the standard singular, also a cellular, and the outdoor shade. I've got it for my large panoramic cafe window. I've got it for my square cut Mediterranean that really faces the sun constantly, but it's not in direct sunlight. And then the outdoor shade was for the most harshest direct sunlight that is just beaming at those windows for the entire day. I also invested on making them a little bit more sustainable with the solar panel add-ons. If you don't go for it, you can just simply charge it via USB-C, and that could be plugged directly into a power outlet, even a power bank. They fundamentally install the same way, with the outdoor being slightly different. All the blinds come with everything that you need to install this onto your wall, but the type of fixings and screws is dependent on your type of wall. So for me, I have concrete, which means I'm using more concrete anchor screws. For the indoor blinds, they generally have these type of like L brackets, and you simply just screw it in. The valance and the actual blind shades themselves, they have these easy to connect and detachable type of brackets. Hook one side and then push in this plastic against the material so that it can clip and hold on very firmly. For the outdoor blinds, it's actually a little bit easier. You don't get these brackets. Instead, you are mounting these detachable ones directly into the outside walls. What was interesting, even on my smaller square cut window, which measured 1.2 meters, and my much wider panorama style window that is 2 meters long, they both came with the same number of brackets, which is 3. You kind of want to make sure you're getting equal or at least a good amount of support. If you put it too close to the edges, then you're going to kind of get a bowing from the center to the edge points. If you put it too close to the center, then you're going to have like bird wings and it's going to sag on the ends. The actual installation is very, very quick. You simply just hook it from one side and then you press it downwards. And as long as you hear a good click, don't feel the bar moving away from the wall and it's got a nice firm hold, then you are literally good to go. So they also have an included template which makes things even easier. The good thing about the outside mounted shades, you can give yourself a little bit more coverage with how wide you want the blinds. I would probably extend my measurements a little bit more. A roller shade, very straightforward. It's just going to give you either a blackout or a light filtering depending on your fabric. I went just for a standard PVC and it is in white, and over time it has held up nicely. One thing that's good is easier to clean. With SmartWings options today, the things that I would change in my current installation is adding a valance. I had that exposed. I just want to see how it looked, but it does get dustier towards the top end as it's rolling. So I would add a valance just to keep that dust free and a lot more presentable. Another reason why you'd want a valance is it hides the actual brackets mounted onto the wall and the screws. You can visibly see it if you don't have a valance like I do, and that's something that I would change. Now let's talk about my cellular shades, which is affixed to one of the bigger windows I have. It's 2 meters wide and 1.5 meters tall, and I've got that just as a single roll. It is a cellular type of shade, which means it's going to give you a standard roller or a blackout type of effect, but you've got individual slats that provide the blackouts, and then towards the ends, it will actually open up. So you do have a blackout feature, but you also have more of a diffusion and light filtering right at the bottom. It makes sense for that type of window because that is looking into the main foyer or the front garden area, so I can easily see who's out there or what's going on. And also that's where I get a lot of strong lighting in the day, so I want some blackouts. Like the standard roller shade, both of these are solar panel charged, and it simply plugs into the USB-C ports. And I've got that facing outside. It gets a lot of great sunlight. So this one actually works very well, and I haven't had the need to actually charge that. It's sustainable. I simply affix it to my clear window, and the cable is reasonable enough even on my bottom awning style window, which SmartWing don't necessarily recommend it can be affixed to. But as long as you've got a good awning and the cable's not stretched, I've got it more towards my top right corner, then I find that works absolutely fine. And solar panel, even on a larger size, is more than enough to be able to power the motor to go up and down, and I do it pretty constantly throughout the day. Now, solar panel is great if you have clear windows like I do and it gets great direct sunlight. Don't have to worry about charging there. But something I didn't factor in, my square type window is actually mirrored, so on the outside it's just going to give you a reflection, and when you add on some of the shading and not always being in direct sunlight, then that will just weaken how much energy it gets from the solar panel. So when I was away for a while, and if you're in, say, the wet season, or the sun is just not out for a while and you're constantly using it, then it will actually deplete the battery because you're not getting enough sunlight. I just use a power bank or have it connected to my portable power station. Give it a few hours and then it will top it back up. Bear in mind the much lower efficiency of getting the solar energy versus a clear panel with direct sunlight. So moving on to the cellular shades, what do I like about it? Well, it gives you two options. You've got a blackout and you've got a light filtering or a softer diffusion. SmartWings has a nice touch. It kind of slows down towards the end of the predefined limits. It just kind of gives it a bit more of a nicer feel to it. It's not suddenly harsh and then it just stops abruptly. It is a little bit more subtle and then it fully stops. If you are spending quite a bit of money in the motorized space, these little touches does add up to making a more satisfying experience. If you have a very wide or very long shade, trying to clean inside there is an absolute nightmare. I didn't really think of it for that reason, for the maintenance or the upkeep, but you would need some kind of long nose on a Hoover, a vacuum cleaner, to really reach those spaces. So the edges are fine and I have quite long arms, but even with my handheld type of vacuum cleaner, it's very difficult to clean in there. So there's a lot more maintenance involved in this compared to the single roller shades. The blackout is not as good as a standard roller because that is a single roll. You just get a complete blackout. It's only really the edges of the bottom and the sides and even the top end of the valance where you're going to get some of those light leakage. But on the cellular, the light can still filter through those individual panels, the light stray or light leaks coming through those individual slats. So it's not the best performing for a blackout type. And if you don't want those light streaks coming through, especially if you're under harsh light, then a standard or even a dual shade, which I'll talk about a little bit later on, are better for you. These cellular shades are only made to open up once it's reached the bottom and it's fully closed. I do like the light filtering system, and my particular one with the individual panels has more of a square cutout for each individual slats or panels. I like the cellular and it definitely works nicely for this type of window, but there's a lot more maintenance I didn't consider. I would maybe also consider a dual shade. So one side of the roll towards the inside of the window is more of a light filtering, and the outside will be a blackout. And essentially it's just two standard rollers together. But this one is still a very clean, very nice looking type of shade. And I'm very happy with how it looks inside and outside. Bear those considerations in mind and you'll enjoy it. Leads me on to my third and final shades that I've currently installed from SmartWings, and it's the outdoor shade. Now, it might be quite a niche or specialty type of shade. The options are a little bit more limited, but they are all rated to handle the outdoors. Very hard wearing, much more durable, much more thicker, and it's going to provide some kind of light filtering. That one's facing very harsh sunlight throughout the day, and it really heats up the room. So reduce how much of that is coming into the room itself. So that one actually covers the entirety. It's an outside mount, 82 by 82 inches. So square cuts, but it's also very wide, and that is a single panel. Compared to when we didn't have any shades, it makes a significant difference. I can also see the harsh lighting in the next window that I'm hoping to get some outdoor shades installed on as well, and that one is super strong. Whereas on this one, it's really filtering out a lot of light by quite a margin. So I'm very happy with that. It does add some privacy and it works like a mirror window, but during the evening, if you have artificial light on the inside, then you can see that from the outside. I honestly don't mind on that. My intention is more just to reduce the amount of heat and UV rays coming into the room. These wall brackets and a cable, you actually screw that into the valance for the main bar, and that steel wire threads through into those brackets, giving you a nice track if you get quite a lot of windy, gusty conditions. It's just going to stop the blinds from moving around, making noise, and just even banging towards your window. Because of those cables and that bracket, it meant it was a bit too tight to the window cutouts and the edges. So I would make the measurement 1 inch, maybe even 2 inch wider, give you a lot more clearance to really affix it to your wall without being too close for comfort. I cannot use these USB-C solar panels I have on these two in the outdoor shade. Kind of sticks out and is a little bit of an eyesore. That could be done a lot nicer. I've seen they've made an add-on from the DC to make it compatible for the specific outdoor solar panel. So you would still have to get the specific solar panel for the outdoor shade. They also add some great water protection as long as it's like light and mid showers. Even heavy showers, as long as it's not really windy, you can have it down because of those cable tracks. For the remote controls, I've honestly found it much more sufficient and plenty enough for how I like to control my windows. SmartWings does recommend you need to have at least one 5-channel, and it has the LED indicator, whereas this one is up to 15 channels, which means you can control up to 15 blinds and impair it. And you have the buttons to open them, close them, stop them, and switch between the channels. Control all of them individually or select channel 0, and that's going to open and close every single blinds that you have paired to this, and at least what is within communicating range. And that's going to be quite a treat when it comes to opening it and closing them, seeing them all in sync. Don't really have the need to go beyond 5. Then of course this one is going to serve it well. The blinds come in sleep mode, so they're not going to accidentally trigger in transit. Physical button on the blinds, and even if you don't have the remote or access to it, you can roll it up or down, and that will just go to the highest and the lowest limits. Hold that physical button for a few seconds, it will jog once, and that puts in pairing mode, and you just have to select the channel you want that one to be controlled. So let's say on channel 4, or at least for me channel 3, and I would just hold the stop button and it's going to jog twice. Any unused channels, even though it's got maximum 15, if you don't want to cycle through them all, then you can hide them, so you're only going to cycle through the active channels with blinds paired to it. The base price of the shades are very reasonable. For Motorised, they roughly start around at least $150 US, and that will just depend on the fabrics and all the connected, the accessories, the remote, the solar panel. Those add-ons will, of course, increase that. The biggest factor for the price is, of course, the dimensions. So if you have very small cutouts, it's very cost effective to get the motorized features. If you have the larger size windows like I do, that's where the price starts to go up. But when you consider that to custom installs for motorized blinds or just alternatives out there, it is quite a bit cheaper. Granted, it might not have the most appealing or widest set of fabrics and colors to choose from, so it would be worthwhile getting their samples so that you can see and really feel the textures. But considering this is my first time installing and using smart blinds, and being my first build where I've even had to consider these things in practice, I think it looks really awesome and is definitely very pleasant to use on a day-to-day when I'm opening and closing. I love just having it motorized, so even on its most basic and essential form, I still think it offers such a great experience and it's very cost effective. Thanks a lot for joining me, Team KBA. If you found this video useful and you enjoyed it, give it a big thumbs up, always appreciate it. And if you are considering SmartWings or you want to explore the rest of their range, do support the channel by using the links down below. I'll see you in the next video, but until then, keep being awesome. Peace.